Hey guys, Hamsterwheel here with a new video and welcome to another guide for the Burning Crusade. This time I'm going to show you 25 quests that you can do for some great gear outside of the usual loot from bosses and dungeons. Please note that some of these quests are quite lengthy, but they are great for doing alongside dungeons, and many of the items displayed are sometimes even better than what you can get out of heroic dungeons. So without further ado, let's get started so you can see exactly what you can get for your character and if it's worth getting for you. And to start things off, we're going to have a look at the quest Natural Remedies, which takes place in Hellfire Peninsula. From this quest you can obtain leather boots for rogues or feral druids, a cloth caster DPS mantle, plate boots for retribution paladins, and mail gloves for elemental shamans. The quest chain starts with an item called the Crimson Crystal Shard, which drops off of Raging Colossi in Hellfire Peninsula. Up next we have our first dungeon related quest, which is Weaken the Ramparts, and that takes place in, you guessed it, Hellfire Ramparts. This quest will get you one of these 4 items: mail gloves for hunters or enhancement shamans, plate shoulders for melee DPS, a cloth caster DPS mantle, and leather boots for melee DPS. This quest can be obtained at Stoneguard Stockton if you're Horde, and Lieutenant Chadwick if you're Alliance. Next we have the follow-up to the previous quest, which is Heart of Rage. This quest takes place in the Blood Furnace, which is usually the next dungeon you do after Hellfire Ramparts. From this quest you can obtain a caster DPS necklace, a healing band, and a cape for melee DPS and hunters. Then we look at the quest The Blood is Life, which also takes place in the Blood Furnace. Upon completing this quest you can choose between one of 4 items: a plate chest piece for retribution paladins, cloth caster DPS pants, a leather headpiece for balance druids, and mail leggings for elemental shamans. The quest starts at Kazarez if you're Horde, and Gunny if you're Alliance. Now we're gonna have a look at the quest called Dimensius the All-devouring. For this quest you can get a leather headpiece for balance druids, a great tanking trinket, leg plates for holy paladins, and a chest piece for resto shamans. This quest chain starts with the quest A Recipe for Destruction at Professor Dabiri in Netherstorm. Up next we have a fairly well-known quest, but it's still worth mentioning, and that is the Ring of Blood quest chain in Nagrand. For completing this quest you have the option of choosing a 2-handed axe, a staff for casters, a dagger, another staff but for feral druids, a main hand fist weapon, and last but not least a healing mace. To start this quest chain you need to talk with Gurthok in Nagrand. Please note that you do have to be neutral with the Magar if you're Horde, or neutral with the Kurnai if you're Alliance. Then we have the quest Teron Gorefiend I Am, which takes place in Shadowmoon Valley. For this quest chain you can choose from 6 different headpieces: a clothy helmet for casters, a plate helmet for DPS warriors, a mail helmet for either hunters or enhancement shamans, another mail helmet for elemental shamans, a leather helmet for rogues or feral druids, and another leather helmet for balance druids. I have to say that these headpieces, with some nice gems, are actually better than what you can get out of heroics, so it is well worth doing this lengthy quest chain. This starts at either Chief Apothecary Hildegard with the quest A Haunted History if you're Horde, or Zorus the Judicator with the quest A Ghost in the Machine if you're Alliance. For the next quest we have the Hero of the Magar quest, which is in Nagrand. And yes, it is Horde only, unfortunately. This quest will give you one of 5 rewards: mail leg guards for either enhancement shamans or hunters, a cloth headpiece for casters, and again, this is better than what you can get in heroic dungeons, a leather chest guard for rogues or feral druids, plate leg guards for warriors or retribution paladins, and last but not least a necklace oriented towards melees and hunters. Be warned though, this quest chain is very lengthy but kinda epic as well. It starts at Jorin Deadeye with the quest The Impotent Leader. Next we have the quest Hitting the Motherlode in Netherstorm, and it's a very quick 2-part quest chain with some pretty neat rewards. From this quest you can get a caster DPS cloak, a healing ring, and a necklace oriented towards melee classes. This quest chain starts with the quest In Search of Fairlight at Zubin El Ganubi. Right, now let's have a look at the quest The Cipher of Damnation, the third fragment recovered, in Shadowmoon Valley. This lengthy quest chain is part of your Tempest Keep attunement, so I advise you to do this. For this quest you have a varied list of rewards, including mail gloves for hunters or enhancement shamans, a plate belt for retribution paladins or DPS warriors, leather shoes for rogues or feral druids, caster DPS shoulders, plate gloves for retribution paladins, and bracers for either rogues, feral druids, and more specifically tanking druids, as these bracers have a nice amount of armor on them. This lengthy quest chain starts at Earthmender Splinthoof if you're Horde, and Earthmender Sulphurus if you're Lions, and the starting quest is called The Hand of Gul'dan. And then we have the quest The Cipher of Damnation, also in Shadowmoon Valley. This is the last part of the Cipher quest chain, and it ends with a battle against a giant firelord, and upon completing it you can choose from these rewards right here. We got a tanking axe, a great bow for melees and hunters, a dagger for rogues, a staff for DPS casters, a two-handed axe for retribution paladins, and a healer staff. Please note that these items are only a little bit worse than the items that drop in level 70 normal and heroic dungeons, so they are pretty darn great. Once again, this quest starts with the Hand of Gul'dan for both Horde and Alliance. Then we arrive at an Aldor or Scryer quest, depending on which faction you've chosen. The quest I'm talking about is Varedis Must Be Stopped, which is again in Shadowmoon Valley. The rewards are a healing dagger, a leather chest piece for rogues or feral druids, a two-handed axe for warriors or retribution paladins, a caster DPS sword, mail leg guards for hunters or shamans, and a staff for feral druids. This quest chain starts with the quest Karabor Training Grounds at Exarch Onala if you're Eldor, and the quest Karabor Training Grounds at Larissa Sunstrike if you're Scryer. Next up we have the quest Dissension Amongst the Ranks, again in Shadowmoon Valley. I know, there's tons of gear to be obtained from this zone right here. Anyway, the rewards are 4 rings that you can choose from. We have a caster DPS ring, a ring geared towards hunters and rogues, then we have an odd ring with melee base stats and a bit of spell damage, which probably works well enough for retribution paladins and enhancement shamans, and finally a tanking ring. This quest chain starts with the quest The Path of Conquest, which starts at Overlord or Barok if you're Horde, and Thane Yorigar if you're Alliance. Alright, now we arrive at a quest that requires you to step into the Caverns of Time and go to Old Hillsbrad Foothills. I'm talking about the quest Return to Andormu. This quest will give you one of 4 rewards. Cloth Caster DPS gloves, leather boots with a bit more tanky stats because of that extra dodge rating, a mail belt with a lot of MP5, so it's probably good for resto and maybe elemental shamans and hunters, and some plate tanking shoulders. This quest chain starts with the quest Caverns of Time at Andormu. Up next we have the follow-up to the previous quest, which takes place in the Black Morass, Hero of the Brood. This quest will give you the option of choosing between 4 rings. 1 caster DPS ring, 1 healing ring, 1 melee DPS ring, and a tanking ring. The quest chain for this starts with the Black Morass at Andormu, which can be obtained as soon as you finish the previous quest chain for the other rewards. Time to delve into some more dungeon related quests, with Brother Against Brother. Unlike all the other quests, this is not a huge quest chain, it's just one which requires you to go into Sethek Halls. Once you did that, you can choose between 4 necklaces, a caster DPS one, a healing one, a melee and hunter one, and finally a tanking one. They're all pretty great items and very close, if not on par with items you can get in heroics. The quest itself can be obtained at Isfar, who is right in front of the entrance of the actual dungeon, so you can't miss him. Up next we have another dungeon related quest, which is the Will of the War Chief for Horde and Turning the Tide if you're Alliance, and that quest takes place in Shattered Halls. Upon completing this quest you can choose between a DPS wand, a healing cloak, a melee and hunter ring, and a tanking necklace. Just like the previous quest, there is no lengthy quest chain, just one that can be obtained by Nazgrel if you're Horde and Force Commander Dadath Trollbane if you're Alliance. Let's move on to a non-dungeon quest that's called Forge Camp Annihilated, which takes place in Nagrand. This quest will reward us one of 4 items. a cloth healer chest piece, leather pants for feral druids or rogues, a mail headpiece for resto shamans, and a tanking chest piece. The quest chain for these items starts with the quest Survey the Land at Altrius the Sufferer. And while we're at it, let's stay in Nagrand a bit longer for the quest Chowar the Pillager. This quest will reward us 3 items including a caster DPS cloak, a healing necklace, or a melee DPS ring. It's a pretty short quest chain, so it's totally worth doing if you ask me. It starts with the quest Missing Magari Procession at Matron Drachia if you're Horde, and Help at Corki if you're Alliance. For the next quest, we're still staying in Nagrand with the quest Gurok the Usurper, which will reward you a caster DPS necklace, a healing necklace, or a necklace for hunters or melee DPS. Like the previous quest chain, this one is pretty short as well, and it starts with the Underneath at Gordog. Right, back to a lengthy quest chain again, and this one takes place in the Blades Edge Mountains. I'm talking about the quest Showdown, which will reward you one of 6 items, so much to choose from. The items are a cloth caster DPS headpiece, leather pants that are more oriented towards feral druids, leather pants that are more oriented towards rogues, a mail headpiece for hunters or enhancement shamans, a plate chest piece for retribution paladins, and a plate chest piece for DPS warriors. This quest starts with a Thunderlord clan artifact, an item that starts a quest if you're Horde, and the quest Date with Dorgok at Commander Heavis Stonewall if you're Alliance. Up next we have another lengthy quest chain which takes place in Netherstorm. The quest I'm talking about is Destroy Naberius. This quest rewards one of 4 items, including a caster DPS robe, a leather healing chest piece, a mail chest piece for hunters or enhancement shamans, and plate tanking leg guards. I do want to add that these items are really good and are probably on par with some stuff that drops in heroics, so it's definitely worth getting. This lengthy quest chain starts with the quest the Archmage's Staff at Ravensweir. And then we arrive at the lengthy quest chain to get the key for the Arcatraz. There's multiple quests in this quest chain that gives you some pretty nice items, starting with Special Delivery to Shatra City. You get to choose from a plate chest piece for melee DPS, cloth healing pants, and leather pants for melee DPS. This quest chain starts with the quest Assisting the Consortium at Spymaster Thaladin if you're Squire, and Anchorite Karja if you're Elder. Next up in that quest chain we have the quest How to Break into the Arcatraz, and from this quest you can get a healing cloak, a cloth caster DPS belt, a leather belt for melee DPS, a mail belt for enhancement shamans or hunters, and a tanking belt. And then finally we have the quest Harbinger of Doom. This quest rewards you a necklace for a caster DPS, a healer, and a melee or hunter. Note that these items do have a fair bit of resilience, so they're also quite handy for PvP. And there you have it folks, a ton of gear that you can get through quests in the Burning Crusade. I hope I was able to give you a bit more insight on the amazing gear that you can get from questing, should you be willing to go out of your way to do them. If there's any amazing quests I missed, then feel free to post them in the comment section below. As always, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.